Hello there. What's going on, everybody? We've got ourselves a new Legion tournament regulations guide. It just came out. Actually goes into effect the 13th of April. For all that's worth, I don't think there's too many tournaments happening in April anyway. However, that is the date that it goes official, and we're going to talk about this today. Also, let me remind you guys, there's still time left to enter to win the giveaway. If you'd like to win a $25 Amazon gift card, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It is as simple as that. All right, guys. So, yeah, we've got our little cutouts for our line of sight with minis. Not gonna be a problem anymore. It's gonna be standardized. We're gonna talk about all of this. I want to actually show you guys the new rules regulations, the tournament regulations guide. It's going to be behind me. I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can take a look at this. But this is going to be tournament regulations version 2.0, effective April 13th. 2020. And one of the cool things they do about, just like any rules reference update, one of the things they do with these is they put all the new stuff in blue. And there's two main things that I want to talk about. You can read all the stuff about the judging and all of that stuff in blue. That's not the focus of what I want to talk about. The big things that I want to talk about in this particular video is, first off, margin of victory. Margin of victory is versus strength of schedule is something that we've talked about quite a bit. And this is not going to be a big deal for people who don't play competitively, but I think it's still cool to know. So here's basically the way that margin of victory and SOS, here's the arguments for them and against them. There was a lot of discussion. Some people are not happy with this change. Basically, Legion tournaments have been going by strength of schedules for tiebreakers. Basically, if you win your game, you get 1 point. If you lose the game, you get no points. And then at the end of the day, you match up. All right, whoever's got the most, points goes to the final table. Right, like that's the way primes were being run. Like 3 rounds of primes, and after 3 rounds of playing, whichever 2 people had the highest scores would go to the final table, play it out for the win. Well, that's all fine and good until you have a certain number of people where you end up having 3 people that each went 3-0, and then one of those undefeated people gets cut, doesn't make the final table. And what's the tiebreaker for that? And it was like strength of schedule. So basically it's however good your opponents also did. So if you beat people that also went on to win 2-0, like you were their only loss, that looks better for you. And that's all fine and good, but there are some problems with that system. One of the problems is if you play somebody and you beat them, but then they drop, like they got a first round loss, so they say, well, you know what, I'm not going to make the final table, so then they just leave the store. Well, now the strength of schedule is, really hurt because that person just left and you had no control over that. That's one of the things that I kind of complain about, because that person might have gone on and won 2 more matches, which helps you in a tiebreaker. And so I'm not a big fan personally of strength of schedule, but I know a lot of people are, and I'm not dismissing those people as not having valid arguments. I've heard very good arguments for that system, because if you beat somebody who's really good, it counts, because then they're going to go on and win 2 more games, and it means that your win, even though it might have been very, very, very close, counted for a lot. And I get that. I totally get that. From my experience, that's not always the case. And the other way is strength of schedule. Basically, it's not just winning. I'm sorry. The other way that now that they've going to is margin of victory. And the general idea of margin of victory has always been that, you're still going to get 1 point for a win, but you're still going to have tiebreakers for if somebody who's undefeated has to get cut, or if it's a tie between people with that are 3-1 for longer tournaments or whatever, who makes who is placed higher. All things considered. And in those cases, I like margin of victory because it means it's not just a win that pushes you forward, but it's a strong win. And what I like about that is you actually have some degree of control over your own wins. In other words, like Armada uses this. It's not just good enough to win, 6-5, like a really close win. You have to, you want to completely destroy your opponent and beat them by the largest margin possible, so that your tiebreaker is definitely a lot higher. Armada uses tournament points, for margin of victory. So it works a little different for Armada, but that's kind of the idea that they're going to here. So basically what it says is a player's margin of victory, MoV, for a particular game is the percentage, and this is one of the key things here, of total victory points earned during the game by that player. It's not a percentage of possible points that could have been scored. So they give some examples on how you'll calculate MoV. It's basically you look at how many victory points you have, how many victory points they have, and then the percentage. In a lot of cases where it used to be sabotage moisture evaporators, MoV, like if you were applying this, MoV would have always been 50-50. You guys each have 50% of the available points, and then it comes down to whoever killed the most, and now moving forward, that's not going to be a heck of a strong win. That's going to be like maybe one of the weakest possible wins. So I expect sabotage moisture evaporators is not going to get chosen as much in the tournament scene. It does specify you can only go up to 100 points. If you're tied, then it's going to be 50-50. An interesting thing here is this third bullet point. If you defeat all of your other players' units, then you get 100% MoV regardless of how many victory points they had. I think that one's fun. I don't expect that is going to happen very often, but it will be really interesting to maybe give players who are even like, if you're behind and your opponent like grabbed all these crates and scored a whole bunch of victory points, you're like, I don't think I'll be able to catch up. There's always that chance. You know what? Let me just go gung-ho, try to completely kill him, and see what I can do. Like, it kind of always gives you a chance. I think that'll be fun. And it also talks about conceding. If somebody wants to concede or if they don't show up, how does that rank into MoV? You kind of call a judge. If everybody agrees, then you still have to score it out. And then they have average margin of victory. And they're talking about another problem that I used to have with strength of schedule is if you get a bye. So it talks about how a bye would be your average margin of victory, or if you've had no games for whatever reason, like your second round they were a no-show and you got a bye the other round, then you're just going to be treated as a 50%, which is kind of bad. But my problem before was a first round bye. When the last time I got a first round bye, they told me that I was treated with a bye with a strength of schedule of 0. So that was like the worst possible win you could have. It sounds like in this case that's probably still going to be the same thing. So I'm not super crazy about that. It's if you get it doesn't say specifically what happens if you get a first round bye, but it looks like it would be a 50% MoV because if you have not played any games and you don't have an average MoV, it looks like it would go with this bottom bullet point here of giving you a 50% one. I might be wrong about that because it doesn't specifically spell out first round buys right here, but it looks like average margin of victory is what they would kind of use for that, or they just keep the buy and you get an undetermined. And this may be how they end up doing it. You get an undetermined margin of victory until the end of the whole tournament, and then the better you did, that raises that first round bye's scoring. So then you kind of have almost like a variable for a bye with multiple rounds. That could be interesting. So that's kind of how it looks like because of this second one. If a player receives a bye for the round, they gain MoV for that game equal to the average MoV of all of their other games for the tournament. It's just like, how do you pair somebody up after round one when their MoV is in dispute? Like, I could have a 50% MoV or I could have 100% MoV. We have no idea for if it's a first round bye. So like your round 2 pairing could be a little weird. I don't know how all of that's going to work out. But either way, I'm a bigger fan of this particular system, and I think it's going to change the way the game is played. And for me personally, with my background in Armada, I feel like this is more conducive to my playstyle because I usually go all out in my games, and a lot of people play differently. So I do acknowledge that this is going to change some people's approach to the game, but this is a good time to introduce something like this because Worlds is either postponed or canceled for this year or something. Worlds is kind of up in the air right now. So it's like, hey, there's plenty of time for people to look at this, strategize, and figure out a new approach to victory and for tournaments. And I think it's going to be very similar to how Armada has gone in the past, and that's you have to have big wins as opposed to just winning by the skin of your teeth just barely over and over again. And there are, again, I've said it before, but there's arguments for both sides. I just happen to prefer this side. That's my current preference. And I'm not saying that anybody's right or anybody's wrong. I'm just giving you my opinion on it. All right, so let's talk about the next big thing. And this one is going to affect, technically, there's some interesting table guidelines here too, which is kind of cool. But the silhouettes. Let's talk about silhouettes. This is going to affect more people, but it's not necessarily going to have to affect everyone. Now, they say that this is only required for tournament play, but I expect most of our games will use these. You don't have to use these if you're just playing casually. I know for my games, I'm going to use these because I like to play, even when I play casually, I generally like to treat even casual games as tournament practice. Even though I don't play in a whole lot of tournaments, I'm not a super competitive guy, but I like to at least base my game on that mindset. So that's just my approach to the game. And I think this is just fun in general anyway, because even my casual games, we tend to be kind of competitive with each other. I mean, that's one of the things that I like about this game, is that it is a fairly competitive game, even when you're playing casually. So what this does is it standardizes the silhouette of a miniature. And as you can see here, they're using Luke Skywalker as a great example of somebody who, and I have a Luke Skywalker right here, and I have printed out this page too, by the way. So if you do print this, it seems like if you just use the default settings and just print as normal, it does seem to line up pretty good. But basically, you're going to get this little piece of paper that you're going to have to print out. Now, this is a little strange because you're going to have a lot of people with, flaky pieces of paper, and how well is this going to hold up by the end of a tournament? Probably not that good. You're probably going to want to print these out on cardstock and maybe get them laminated. And I am pretty sure by the end of this video, there's going to be about 12 dozen shops with their own, with their own silhouette templates available. So, like I'm sure there's going to be third-party stuff, acrylics, metal, who knows? Maybe even Luxury Playstyle will get some of these once hopefully they start doing Legion stuff. Yeah, so, but basically you can print this out for now, and then you can start using these. And anytime that line of sight is in question, can I see this person? Like they point out, most times it's not going to be a question because most miniatures occupy the same space for the most part. But in those cases where it's like, hey, I can see Luke's lightsaber, or there's certain minis where you want to kind of give them a bizarre pose. I've seen like Grievous, people put lightsabers in his feet. I gave Grievous lightsaber nunchucks, so he's got chains hanging from them, things like that. Anytime there's going to be a question with those minis, you're going to basically use this. So you're going to print this out, you're going to cut these out, and you're going to put them behind the mini, like so. And can you see that blue square, basically? If you can see the blue square, then you can see the mini. Now, this can be both a pro and a con here, because as you can see in the straight up example of Luke Skywalker, that blue square is bigger than Luke Skywalker's silhouette. So when determining line of sight to Luke Skywalker, place the silhouette template directly behind Luke's base. If any part of the silhouette template, not including the orange tabs, is visible to another mini, the mini has line of sight to Luke. In this example, Luke's lightsaber extends beyond the silhouette and does not count for line of sight. So that top part of his lightsaber does not count for line of sight. However, these kind of corners above that somebody might not have had, now suddenly they might have. So this is but it's gonna be normalized for every miniature across the board. So while I talked about how that other rule with MoV is gonna change the game a little bit as far as how players approach their tournament plans, this one's gonna impact the game on where you place your minis. If you likes to move some minis like all the way up to the edge of a corner of a wall and just barely not poke them out, all of a sudden now there's a chance, that shoulder being right up against the wall might not be good enough because the blue silhouette, which is basically the width of the base now, is going to be taller now. So that's something to think about. And just FYI, I did kind of hold Luke up to this thing, and it's about perfect. I don't know if you guys can really see right there, but yeah. So it's about perfect as far as I can tell, at least the way my printer printed it out. So that's kind of cool, but I don't think that little piece of paper is going to last too long. Now, the orange stuff in there is just to help you hold it. So this way your fingers can have something to grip, that your finger's not blocking the blue. So I understand why they did the little orange things on there. So yeah, so that's that one's actually pretty interesting. I am curious from you guys, like, if you are looking into some kind of aftermarket stuff, what would be something cool to kind of, implement these designs that third-party people might do? I am thinking people will probably have them with like a little stand, so you can stand it up, so you don't have somebody like holding it and like, oh, you're shaking it or something like that, right? Or what if they're on a really narrow piece of terrain, like, so like I could see a couple of different ways. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if like acrylic or nicer versions of these made themselves available in the next like promo kits and things like that. So that would be pretty cool. But this is the first time they're like requiring you a whole something else that doesn't come with the game, and then just like, here, print this out. And the thing is, they're saying it's only required for tournament play. So if you just want to play casually, you can ignore this altogether and then continue to just shoot Luke by aiming at the very tip of his saber. But I think for the most part, this is a good change. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to. But another big, huge proponent of this change was all the flight stands that are going to be coming with, hopefully, next month's releases, between the ARC Troopers, Clan Ren, and everybody that's up and flying on these jetpacks. They're going to have all these dynamic poses, and they want people to be able to say, hey, look, I'm out and about, and I'm doing all this crazy, goofy stuff. Oh, well, now I can see, and how many times have you said like, oh, I really want, I really want this sniper right here. Oh, but I can see the tip of the sniper's gun. And so I don't like the whole like not being able. I don't like to have to like turn my minis around facing the opposite direction just because that worked out perfectly. I don't want to have to worry about that. So this really allows you to hobby a little bit more and have a lot more freedoms with your minis, and really only having to worry about this for line of sight. So I think it'll be a pretty fun change. But I would love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of this change? It's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. I like it. I think it's a good idea. That's what I think. All right, guys. Well, that is about all I've got for today. So make sure you click that subscribe button, leave a comment, enter to win that giveaway. That's running for about another week. And also, if you guys do like the channel, you want to support the channel, there are links down in the description below for merch, for t-shirts. If you're going to be ordering any tokens from Luxury Playstyle, you can use code Crabbok VIP for that. If you want to follow me on social media, there's all that down there. Or Patreon, which is definitely the way. But yeah, you can definitely find all different ways to support the channel. So I want to thank you guys so much. And as always, have a great day.